There's a moment that every B2B tech founder hits, usually somewhere between 1 to 10 million ARR, where the thing that the business was built on starts to break. And unfortunately, that thing is you. Let me explain what I mean. Most founders I speak to built their revenue on personal relationships. They knew the right people, they asked the right questions, and they closed pretty much on instinct. And that approach worked brilliantly at the early stage because the founder's credibility, their network, their energy was genuinely the best asset that the business had. But at some point, that stopped working. And not because the founder stopped being good at sales, but because the business had outgrown what one person can carry. The pipeline becomes inconsistent. Some months are really strong, others are empty. And because it's entirely dependent on how much time the founder has, forecasting becomes guesswork because there's no system to inspect it. And then the founder becomes the bottleneck in every significant deal, which means that they can't focus on the other 100 things that need their attention. And this is the Rainmaker Trap. And pretty much no one talks about it openly because admitting that you've built a £3 million business and you still can't get out of sales is pretty uncomfortable. So the obvious response is just to hire someone, right? So the founder goes to market, finds a candidate with a strong CV, big company background, good numbers, confident in the interview, and then 6 months later, that person hasn't hit their number, the founder's frustrated, the rep is confused, and both of them have got a completely different story about why and where it went wrong. Here's what actually happened. The founder hired the wrong profile for the wrong stage. So a rep that thrives in a large enterprise where the brand does half of the work, where there's a full marketing engine, the product is established, it's a completely different animal to what a 2 million ARR business is. But more importantly, the founder handed the new hire a territory and a target with no process, no qualification framework, no defined ICP, and no way to know which deals were worth chasing and which ones you can just completely forget. And you can't put a person into a system that doesn't exist and then just expect them to build one. And that's not what you hired them to do, and it's not really a fair ask. The failure wasn't the hire, it was the absence of any kind of structure that they needed to succeed in the first place. So what's actually missing? Well, 3 things in pretty much every case. First is a behavioral ICP, so not a description of your ideal customer by industry or job title, but a precise picture of the situation that makes a buyer ready to and motivated to move. What are the triggers? What are the circumstances? What are the pain points? Why is it urgent and not just interesting? Second, you need a qualification framework. So you need a consistent way of assessing every deal so you know which ones are real, which ones are wishful thinking, who's a real decision maker, is there a genuine champion there in the account, or is it just a friendly contact? Has the buyer qualified the costs? Do you know the full decision-making process? Is procurement involved? You know, all of these things are important. And then third, you need a sales process with a defined stage exit criteria, not a CRM with stages, conditions that the buyer has to meet before any deal advances. And that's the difference between filling a system and just like any diagnostic tool. And without those 3 things, every sales hire is going to underperform. Not because they're bad, but because the environment just doesn't give them what they need to succeed. So what we build at Bridge Growth is what we call the revenue independent system. It's a 5-stage methodology: diagnose, define, build, operate, and then transfer. So we start by auditing your current pipeline deal by deal to identify exactly where things are breaking down right now. We redefine the ICP by behavior. We install a qualification framework and a sales process. We build the outreach infrastructure across things like outbound, partners, events, content, and then we run the system and generate qualified pipeline. And then the stage that most people never reach is the transfer operation, where the client's business runs without the founder having to be in every single deal. And the goal is pretty simple. The founder looks at their pipeline on Monday morning, you check the leading indicators, and you know exactly what your revenue looks like in 90 days without having to be in every single sales conversation every single week. If you're a B2B tech founder, 1 to 10 million ARR, and you're still closing most of your own deals and you're ready to build a system that changes that, I'd love to speak to you. There's a link below to find out more about how we work, or drop me a message directly. I respond to every single email.